Well, which one is?
Boo.
I have to remember. Oh no, it's this one, right? I think.
Okay. We have. Okay, that's a lot longer than that was gonna be.
All right, I'm turning that off now. Oh, dude, this is like the hottest day of the summer so far, I think. There's like a swamp out here. I feel like I'm in Singapore. Like actually, like with all this greenery and everything.
Oh yeah.
I was driving up the DVP and it just smells different. Like part of it is just the Don River.
It's mostly the Don River.
It's mostly the Don River, but some of it is nice because of all the trees around there, and it does feel like you're kind of in a tropical place. But yeah, so welcome back to the Two Track Mind podcast. We are recording on location today at our club, and this is a pretty exciting podcast because. The last podcast, Patrick and Jay and I recorded, a pod on the current state of time attack, and I feel like we've awakened the ancient one over here. Not to say that you're old, but you
That's kind of what it sounded like.
Been in the game for a while.
Exactly.
Sure.
So for those of you who don't know, we've got Scott Shadbolt here with us, and as Patrick has mentioned, I think Scott is probably one of the most recognizable people in the Ontario time attack scene. Ontario time attack, little O, little T, little A, not OTA, but like OTA. In Ontario, right? Because
yes.
If they don't know you personally, people who are in the scene know your car.
They know the car.
They know
sure.
the car.
They don't
right?
know me. They just know the car.
It's absolutely iconic. So I'm just like super pumped to have this conversation. And one of the things that we like to do with this podcast and with the channel in general is we want to make grassroots motorsports, local motorsports as accessible as possible. And part of that is we bring in our heroes, right? And we try to make them super relatable. Right, just like everybody else who's interested, and one of the things we love to talk about with our guests is try to understand their upbringing a little bit, right, and what made them into the person that they are today, and the interests that they have, right. So I'd be really curious to know what was your first car memory. Doesn't have to be related to motorsports, as mundane as it can be, but what's like your earliest memory of cars?
Yeah, so my earliest memory of cars, my mom is going to kill me for this one because she denies this ever happened, but I vividly remember. So actually, I should start a little earlier on. My parents have always been car people, okay. My mom specifically. So my mom's, I think, what got me into cars in the first place. She's always had Corvettes.
Oh, nice.
Like since well before I was born, always had Corvettes, to the point when I was born, my parents had 2 Corvettes. So if we went somewhere as a family, we had to take 2 cars. At least that's what my mom says happened. What I remember happened is I got tossed in the back of the fastback and just kind of rolled around back there. before our safety was really a concern, child seats weren't a concern. I just bounced around in the back of a Corvette. It was a 77. It was slow, but it was the coolest thing ever at the time. And that is definitely my first car memory.
No, that's awesome.
Dude, that's so cool. You know I'm a Corvette engineer, right?
I do know that. Yeah. I modified that story just for you.
Yeah. So it was actually like a Trans Am or something? Oh, that's cool, man.
No, I remember growing up, I had a friend who's, we'd always go over to his place after school for, PlayStation, play Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. Has to be 2.
Hell yeah.
But what I remember very vividly is that his grandma had a station wagon with like the wood paneling on the sides. And the most fun part was whenever we would go on road trips, they had the rear facing seats.
I was just going to ask, please tell me it had the rear facing
seats. That like, who came up with that idea? It was great as a kid. It's like so entertaining. It's like, wow, this experience is so weird. You're going backwards. Like obviously now, like no one in their right mind would design a seat like that. But
yeah, you get rear-ended.
Yeah.
Not a good time.
Yeah.
You'll see it coming.
Yeah. And so, okay, that's your first car memory. I feel like if that is the first car memory, it's only going to get crazier. So I'm almost afraid to ask. But, what would you say the car culture then and the role of cars in your upbringing was like?
Yeah, so I mean, cars have always been a focal point in my life and probably most of my family's life. But racing didn't really come into it until quite a few years later. So yeah. I had always enjoyed looking at cars and I was always eager to get under the hood and help my mom work on her car. I was doing that for basically as soon as I could pick up a set of tools. Usually broke something, never really fixed anything. And then it wasn't until I got my license that things kind of came around. Before that, it was like RC cars and skateboards.
Yeah.
So once I got my driver's license, the RC cars, I forgot about those. The skateboard, I forgot about that.
There
And
tech decks mixed in.
yeah. And and then as soon as I got my license, got behind the wheel, and things got stupid in a hurry.
Yeah.
So, I won't say that I was smart about the way I wanted to go fast. I got some keys. I ripped everywhere on the street. My first car was a 1990 Beretta GT. I thought it was the fastest car on the planet. And I drove that thing everywhere at the top of third gear. And it only had 3 gears.
Wow. That sounds very adventurous. My first car was like, I said in the podcast, it was a Mark V GTI, but before that was like my parents' car. And it was just like a Mazda Protege, just
Not
putting
as
it around.
cool as
Not
the
as
Beretta.
Yeah,
Not even
nothing's
close.
as cool as a Beretta.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It was
Not even-
black with red stripes. Like,
That's cool.
Would you say, now looking back, right, in your youth and in your days of exploring cars and getting into motorsports, is there a single moment you can kind of point to where it's like, that was the time where I knew, like, I'm going to be modifying cars like crazy. I'm going to go compete, set times, and it's just going to become, and I'm going to say it's part of your identity at this point. You'd probably agree with that?
it's definitely part of my identity.
Right. So like, what is there a point that that you can kind of point back to and say, yeah, that was a turning point?
Yeah. For a while I was into car audio, which was weird. So it was all about adding as much weight to the car as possible and making it as slow as possible. But once I got through high school and got into college, I bought an S13 as a commuter car and immediately blew the engine up on it. And that sent me down the rabbit hole of what can I do to make this car better?
And
then I found SRs.
Hold up. KA, which one was it?
The original engine was a KA.
Oh, hell yeah.
But I blew that up somehow, even though they're virtually indestructible. I found a way. And I swapped it to an SR, and I proceeded to build a very high horsepower build without doing anything else to the car. All season tires, stock suspension, stock brakes, cheapest brake pads I could find. And I just ripped that thing up and down the 400.
Wow.
And then that kind of got me into speed. And somehow I managed to avoid speeding tickets. But a little bit of backstory, my stepdad is retired Toronto police.
Okay.
And he bailed me. I won't go into detail on this one, but he bailed me out doing something really stupid. And he essentially told me, like, hey, you've got a speed problem.
Yeah.
Why don't you start going to the track?
Yeah.
See how that
Wow.
goes.
Yeah.
So-
Take it to the track.
Yeah, take it to the track. And so the first time I went to the track, I had my high horsepower SR swapped 240, which was terrible. It was virtually unusable. No grip, terrible brakes, just useless as a track car.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of led me down the road of, okay, there's something here. I like this.
Yeah.
I'm going to start building this car the right way.
Yeah.
And that I sold that car, grabbed another S13, and spent more. SR swapped it as well, of course, but spent a little bit more time on the suspension, the brakes, dialing it in, focusing on grip, working on myself, trying to find the best way to drive the car, and then things just kind of went forward from there.
Yeah. Isn't that so interesting, right? Like that journey of, I built this car, I got interested in tracking, realized I built the wrong thing, right, for that purpose. And then there's like a rebuilding, right? And I guess like part of it is just like people don't really plan with the intention of going to the track when they first get into cars, right? And then it's just like this kind of painful process, at least for the wallet, right? Of like just completely changing the modifications.
And the ego, right?
Yeah,
Because you
of
go there
course,
thinking,
of
you're like, oh yeah, this car is amazing. I'm going to show these guys that have probably been tracking for years.
Yeah, I've spent some time on Gran Turismo, I got this.
I'm going to show them what's up. And then you realize really quick, you're not going to show anybody what's up.
Yeah. These guys, like retirees, are, running laps around you and then gapping you everywhere.
Yeah. I remember a guy took me out, one of my first track days, he took me out in a completely stock 944 turbo and just blew my mind with how he drove the car.
Yeah.
And that really opened my eyes to, I have no idea what I'm doing, there's a lot to learn. It's not just about making the car fast in a straight line. It's about maximizing the driver and then working on the car and evolving the car as you evolve as a driver.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably like one of the things that I enjoy the most is taking new track enthusiasts out in the car, right? Because the thing that I always tell them is like, you're gonna feel like you're in a very familiar setting, which is on the inside of a car, but it's not gonna feel like you're on the inside of a car once we get going, because like you can tell like their mind's just kind of like processing like, oh no, we're not gonna make that corner. The corner's coming. We're not gonna make that corner, right? And then you just send it through, and I don't know. I just love that because I know what must be happening. I don't know. Maybe this is kind of like a little egotistical, but like I just feel like I know what's kind of happening in their mind. I just love that for them. Yeah.
Well, they always want to know how fast you're going to go.
Yeah.
But it's not about how fast you're going to go. It's how fast you're going when you start braking. That always surprises people.
Yeah, and like how fast a car can stop. I think I've heard that many times. Like, oh, the brakes are crazy.
When you see them just do this.
Yep.
Yeah. And for those that aren't watching the video, just lean back and put their hand out like, why aren't you braking? Why aren't you braking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the best experience.
Do you have a passenger seat in your M3?
The answer to that is occasionally. So yeah, most of the time, no. But I do a pretty cool event called Celebration of Speed at Mosport GP that happens once a year, which is a ride-along event.
Yep.
For the I'm trying to think of it. It's
Drive Fest?
No, not for Drive Fest. It's for the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
So, and then I throw a passenger seat, take people out for rides, get that same experience where people are completely shocked as to what's going to happen next. And yeah, always a good time.
Yeah. In my track car, which is currently half a track car, also does not have a passenger seat. And that's always the thing that gets me like thinking about. It's like, oh, I want to be able to bring people along and get like you guys to come along, right? To give me pointers and stuff like that. But I'm like, extra weight. Can't put the fuel jugs there.
Extra
and the tools.
weight.
You know, it's actually like once I removed it, I'm like when I go to the track, because I also drive my car to the track as is, it becomes so much more space to just put all your tools and your fuel jugs and your tires and whatever, right? And when you don't have that extra seat.
That is part of the reason. I don't think I can actually go to the track without a support car following me with all the gear I need with the passenger seat in place.
Yeah, exactly.
So to clarify, Scott drives his M3 race car to the track.
I do.
Yeah. And so we were just talking about this before the pod because so he and I actually live in pretty close to the same neighborhood. And I see him putting around town. Actually, the first time I knew of you through Instagram first, but then this must have been like 7 years ago. I saw you kind of like driving around the summer near the beaches. Like I was just by, what was I doing? You know, at the beaches, they have like the indoor soccer dome and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was like doing some corporate event there. And then as I was coming home, like, oh, I recognized that car. I was like, is he driving that on the street? It was like, it just kind of blew my mind. And then I was also telling like, one of my friends like lived in a townhouse nearby. And I didn't know, I'm not a stalker. Trust me, I'm not a stalker. I didn't know you lived around there. And then
Toronto's a small city.
Yeah, I look relative. I look out the back window and I just see him working on his car in his garage. I'm like, I know that car. Okay, I guess this is where he lives. but okay, so we're skipping around a little bit, but I think we should talk about this, right? Like, I live in downtown Toronto. You live in downtown Toronto. You live in
Brampton.
Yeah, so he's the most experienced driver of all of us, just from driving the streets. And you're in Markham. So you got a little bit more space than us, but not that much more. Similar traffic. One of the problems in living in Toronto and being a car enthusiast is that to have space to not only park your car, but to work on your car, that's an extreme premium, right? Especially when, let's say, like you only have one garage spot, which I believe you do, right?
Yeah.
And you gotta be responsible, and you have family, you have a significant other, maybe they have a car too, and you're like, sorry, I'm gonna have to take that spot. How do you how do you work through that? How do you make it work?
So the car was there before I met my wife.
Okay, so this is how the conversation is going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and she understands.
Okay.
She's always understood that even when we went shopping for our house, she was aware that a garage was a priority and that I wouldn't even consider a house without a good garage.
Yeah.
So yeah, thankfully we walk everywhere in the city. So we've got one other car that we use as kind of like our day to day.
Yep.
It's fine on the street. We're okay with that. But yeah, so I'm allowed the garage. It's my space to do what I want with the car, and she fully supports it. So I'm quite lucky there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah. I think these are just some of the realities of doing the hobby at the level that we want to do it. Is like some of the things that we actually stress us out the most is more about like impact on other people in our lives, right?
Yeah.
Because we know like how much time and energy that we're putting into this. Like we still, at least like we know like if we're trying to be mature about it, we need to save like good energy for the people around us that are not into the hobby as much, and especially when it's like so close to home and you're like working on the car and taking up the space. I think it's one of the things that like it's not a sexy topic to talk about, but it's real, right? Like,
Yeah, you don't wanna
you
do
like occupy your entire family home's like garage.
supercharger build at 2 a.m. with loud impact tools.
Yeah,
I feel bad for my mom. Shout out my mom.
yeah. It's no, it's a all consuming hobby for sure.
Yeah.
So you had a 240. You currently have the E46 M3.
Yep.
And a Z,
yeah, I've got a 73 Datsun at home as well.
right? Any cars in between?
Yeah, the daily is a stick rear wheel drive M240, which is
Okay.
a fun little car.
Hell yeah.
Good daily.
But yeah, in between the S13, so I had a few S13s. The two that I told you about, I had one more after that. And then that last one was a more focused track build. It was stripped out. It had all the right parts on it. And the lapping days I used to go to back then. Do any of you guys remember Dunville?
That's where Throttle House does all of their
They do
content.
their videos there. So that used to be a
People don't
track
know
you could go
that.
there.
Was this an exclusive right here?
So what is it? It's a private track right now. Nobody can go.
Well, it got shut down. I think the local town complained about it.
Like
and-
noise and stuff.
Yeah, and the noise, and they shut it down. But it used to be an old airport, and then they turned it into a circuit. And they used to just have open lapping days there. And there was a group of us that used to go on Fridays all the time and just run laps there. And one of my buddies had an R32 GTR, and his exit speeds used to just blow me away. So I got rid of the S13, got an R32, and that was probably my most focused track build to date. I did a cage in that car, kept the engine mostly stock for reliability, and just focused on brakes, tires, suspension, and had a lot of fun with that car. And then as I got a little bit older, I decided I should probably buy a house, and made the worst decision of my life and sold that car for a down payment on the house, and had the
Usually people say like that's the best decision ever.
I know. Car people always look at it a little bit different. Yeah, and I had the M3 at that point, which was just supposed to be like a fun Sunday driver, keep it stock.
Right.
Did a year without going to the track, which was probably the worst year of my life. And then started taking the M3 to track, and then things kind of spiraled out of control from there.
It's interesting that you went from like going for power, and then all of a sudden you're like, I left the motor stock, focus on the suspension, the brakes. Like what a turnaround, like what a difference, right? So anybody watching, like maybe go if you're looking to track the car, like do the fluids, do brake pads, but try it out first. Like go stock. You don't need a whole ton of power or anything like that, and then see what you need to modify after you actually see what it's like, because it's so different from being on the street than being on the track, right?
Oh, 100%. And also you're going to have more fun, because as soon as you start adding power, you kill reliability. And at the end of the day, if you're going to the track, you want to be able to turn laps, especially when you're new. Like the M3, I didn't do anything power-wise until I had been competing with that car for about 6 years.
Wow.
6 years. That's like me. I supercharged my car after 6 years. Interesting.
Exactly.
There you go. That's exactly what I did.
So I have a question for you, actually. Your car is SMG, am I correct?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so you probably had a lot of people asking you, like, why SMG?
Why SMG? So the honest reason to that was I had a family friend selling a really nice M3, and it happened to be SMG.
Yeah.
That's the only reason behind it. It was just what I had.
Run what you brung.
Exactly.
Roman
exactly.
Javon, but so question, would you have wanted a manual instead?
No. So for the track, I prefer it. Like my other two cars are manuals. I love them. They're a ton of fun to drive, but on the track, the SMG has been great. It's been a lot of fun. It's tuned, it shifts almost as well as a DCT, and it's just one less thing to worry about. It does make me quicker.
Yep.
And unlike what everybody says about SMGs, it has not been a whole bunch of trouble. It's been fine.
It's our friend Dragos in the background. They're just revving his E36 because he knows we're
Manual.
recording. He knows we're recording. He's just being a jerk. He wants like, all right, how do I get on the pod? All right, this is how I get on. Just being annoying.
BMW guys, man.
Yeah, I know.
Can't stand
It's the
them.
worst. Yeah. No, I mean, I love that you say that because, you know, for a time in the tracking scene, like people were looking down on people driving automatics and whatnot. Yeah, and it came from a place of like, you know, being performance oriented because I think like some slush boxes, like if it's not meant to be a sports car, yeah, you're gonna be at a disadvantage. But when it comes to sports cars, especially modern ones, like yeah, you want to set the fast lap times, especially consistent ones. Yeah, automatic doesn't even have to be a DCT. I mean, you look at the 8 HP transmission, right? In the Supras and now in the
ZF
new M2, like
Yeah.
it's a great transmission.
I mean, if you want to put the fastest laps down on a G body, you get an automatic.
Yeah, for sure. That your experience so far?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, DCT is amazing. So good, right? You just click a paddle, right? Just like getting the braking perfect, right? And left foot braking is like huge already. Just being able to shift and left foot brake, like managing the front end, it's like world of difference, completely different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you didn't add power until 6 years in or around there.
Yeah.
What would you say were like the chapters of that car's build?
Yeah. So when it first started off, because when I first started tracking with the M3, it was very stock and it was fine. It was fun. And then I found Time Attack and I went out to my first event and the competition wasn't there yet. Like it was still in its infancy. I got moved right into Super Street because for whatever reason they classed E46 M3s totally stock in Super Street back then. That's how much it's changed.
Yeah.
Can you imagine somebody showing up with a stock E46 in Super Street now?
Yeah.
It would be it would be murder. But and I did okay. And I was like, okay, this is cool. They're timing you. My lap times were, I want to say like a 124 or something at TMP just to show how slow it was back then. And that was good enough for a podium.
Like a pretty stock car, right? Like that's serious time still.
Yeah, but that was good enough for a podium back in like, that would have been 2011. And then that went on for probably a couple of years of just casually showing up, having fun at the track, not taking it too seriously, getting a plastic trophy at the end of the day and being like, oh, this is awesome.
That doesn't change. Yeah.
No, the plastic trophies have not changed. Everybody still wants those. But then people started showing up and started going a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I feel like I'm driving this car well, but now it's time to upgrade the car. So I put a little bit of money into it, got a GRZ suspension set up.
Nice.
Invested in like a good square wheel and tire setup, upgraded the brakes to a Stop Tech kit, and just got the car a little bit more sorted. But then the competition was evolving very quickly. So there was a couple players that came in. There was a Corvette that I was battling with a lot of events that was just killing me on the straights and in the corners. So I invested in Aero. So that was probably the first big obvious evolution with the car is when I did the Aero on it. And that would have been probably 2015 when I put the Aero package on it.
Yeah.
Which made the car competitive at tracks like DDT, at Shannonville, but still not at Cayuga.
Yeah.
So a couple of years later, I finally bit the bullet and put a supercharger kit on it.
Yeah.
And that was the next big stage of the car. And that would have been 2017.
Yeah.
And that made a big difference. Obviously, the car went through a lot of hiccups the first year. So the first year I did it was not competitive. IAT issues were a big problem. Car was overheating. It could barely pull a lap. But once I got all that sorted, the next year was great. Like it was one of those years where you just go in and the car was overbuilt compared to everybody else in the class. So it was just smooth sailing all year long.
Yeah.
And then as happens in competition, the next year, everybody kind of picked up the pace and built their cars up. So then it got competitive again. And And then after I did all that, the roll cage came next because it was just one of those things where I wanted to get into doing bigger tracks, not necessarily for time attack, but just for lapping, go down to Watkins Glen, do that a couple times a year, watch some pretty big crashes, which kind of opened my eyes to safety, which is why I put the full cage in the car, did a containment seat, got a proper head and neck restraint in the car, and just did more of a safety focused build. And that's sort of and that all happened in 2018. And that's essentially the version of the car you see today. It hasn't changed a whole lot since then. Just a couple tweaks for reliability along the way.
For sure. Yeah, I can see how going down to Watkins would open your eyes a little bit. Even I remember like the first time I did that track on the sim, I'm like, because it's probably like one of the closest US tracks for us to go to, right?
Yeah.
And so like, it'd be fun to go down there. And I drive in the sim, like, damn, this is a pretty serious track. Especially after you go up the hill, like the wall is just so close on the side. Like it's very obvious why they put the chain link fence that wraps around the entire side of it just to prevent cars from just flying over it. But
when you drive it, it feels like the whole track's just closing in on you. And if you make one little mistake, you're going to start pinballing back and forth.
Yeah. No, it's and I one thing I remember about the cage that you have in your car, it's a fantastic one. You got it from like a pretty reputable builder, right?
Yeah, Ronnie O'Brien built that cage, and he's been building cages for years.
Yeah. What was like? What did you have any strong opinions about the design that you wanted for that cage, or you kind of just let him kind of
Well, actually, Rocco at RMP was my big inspiration on that one because Rocco has built a number of race cars over the years and has always been somebody I really trust for guidance on things that I can't figure out myself. And he basically said, like, do this and get Ronnie to build it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's told me quite clearly, he's like, I don't know when you'll get your car back, but when you get it, it will have a very safe cage that's properly built. So that was it was a little difficult because everything I'd done on the car to that point had been researched and every decision I had made myself. Exactly. So I was kind of handing it off saying, okay, you do what's best, but it's not a decision I regret. The cage turned out great. It's properly built. It's very safe. It looks fantastic. So yeah, I'd say it worked out.
Yep. And I think properly researched and very discerning is exactly how I would describe how you kind of put together your car. Like the photos that you like, what's your Instagram handle? FS Motorsports, right? Like go follow him on Instagram. Take a look at the interior of this dedicated track car because it's cleaner than like most Garage Queen daily weekend drivers that I've seen. Like you're probably using like Aerospace, what is it, 707 spray, whatever, to clean the dash and everything. I'm like, man, like I don't have a single thing in my entire possession that's clean. And this is like a track car. Like, how do you have the time and energy to do this? And then I'm just trying to piece it all together. It's like, okay, so he takes it to the track, drives it to the track, keeps it super clean. If I'm taking a car to the track and tracking it, I can't be bothered to think about all those other things because I'll just be like, no, like it's just becoming too much, right? Like how do you find the time to do all that?
It's just part of my speed process. Like,
yeah.
I don't feel
it's tense. You got it.
Exactly. It adds,
we got to Swiffer the interior, take the lint out.
But I guess like the perfect analogy is everybody's washed their car on like a nice sunny day and then gone for a cruise and it for some reason it drives better. You know, it doesn't
different.
actually drive better. Yeah, it definitely hits different. You know, there's nothing different about the car, but it feels better.
Okay.
And that I guess is my reasoning for why I treat the car the way I do before a track event. It's very important to me that the car looks as good as it can. Yeah. Because then I feel that me and the car are going to gel and it's going to perform the best it can.
Rituals.
Yeah.
You get intimate with the car beforehand, right? Then
yeah, you got to spend some quality time.
Yeah, exactly. And so somewhat related, right? We've kind of discussed like you drive to and from the track, which is really cool, right? Like to be able to do that. I think like that's everyone's dream is to have an arrive and drive car, more or less. One of the things we talked about on the podcast before is like tracking, especially when you go by yourself, can be it can be a lonely experience if you're kind of just there on your own, especially if like going to a new event, you don't know anybody, a new track, something like that. I think one of the anxieties that I had when I first started tracking was, what if my car breaks down? How do I get home? And that like really affected me throughout the day when I'm driving at the track. Nowadays, it's not as much of an issue because I know, like, you know, these guys will bail me out. Some of these got CAA. Like, we'll figure it out, right? Like, if it's 2 a.m., we're still waiting for a tow truck, I know I'm not going to be the only one there, right?
I'll be there.
Yeah.
Laughing at you the whole time.
So like, with that in mind, right? Like, how do you kind of manage that, you know, that thought in the back of your mind, or maybe you don't even think about it?
I think about it, but I just assume I'm going to have good luck.
It's worked out so far.
Yeah. I mean, it has and it hasn't. Like, I definitely have some stories of things not going well. But I always, I don't know, some wood I can knock on around here, but it always sorts itself out. I always find a solution to get the car home. Like, it's definitely had some pretty serious mechanical failures.
Yeah.
Nothing that's completely made the car undrivable, but there's been some late night trackside repairs done to get me home.
Yeah.
I remember, like, driving home from Calabogie last year, the fuel pump, well, I thought the fuel pump failed on the way home. And I was on Highway 2, like, middle of nowhere by myself. My wife was far ahead. She had carried on, and I was just driving along, and the car started sputtering, and it just shut down.
Yeah.
The side of Highway 2.
Wait, let me guess. Grounding.
No. So you'll probably never guess what it was, so I'll just skip ahead. But I thought it was a fuel pump because it would, like, start and then stall and start and stall.
So it's funny because he's this weekend at Lucky Dog Racing, right?
Yeah.
Our car died. We thought it was fuel pump, right? So at the end of the day, after taking the fuel pump out, switching in a new fuel pump, it was actually a loose ground.
Yeah.
That's what he's referring
No
to.
way.
So this is just 2 days ago. Like, it was insane. Yeah. But sorry, continue on.
Well, in this case, it was actually the feeder pump that pulls for the stock saddle tank in the back. It pulls fuel from one side of the tank to the other.
Yep.
So what was happening is, actually, the entire weekend competing at Calabogie, the car was randomly just missing at high RPM. And I thought I had, like, a coil pack on the way out or something. And then, completely unrelated, before the final, I took the valve cover off just to give more air to the coil packs. And I put another 10 liters of gas in it, and I went out and I ran the final and ran great. And I'm like, oh, I guess it's the coil packs.
Yeah.
What I actually did was refill the other half of the tank, because the feeder tank wasn't pulling it from one side to the other. It was just refilling as the car sloshed through the corners. So on the way home, obviously no corners driving straight. It just drained one half of the tank, but it was still showing that the tank had half a tank of fuel in it. So it didn't even clue into me until my stepdad drove all the way back from Pickering, brought me 15 liters of gas because I said, please just bring some gas just in case. I called a tow truck. It was like 3 hours away. I sat at the side of the road in the baking sun, removing the splitter, trying to make the car so it was actually towable. We threw 15 liters of gas in and it fired right up. And I was like, oh,
Dude.
of course.
It's the best feeling, but also, like, the most
Best and
frustrating.
worst. Yeah. I'm like, I've just spent
exactly
3
what
hours
it
on the
is.
side of the road here. I've taken my car apart for no reason. I've got the splitter off. I've got the bumper off.
No,
it's all ready for the
That's
tow
like
truck.
literally the exact same story.
we know how it feels.
Yeah,
Scott.
it's
We
like
know
we-
how it feels.
we-
I feel like every racer's been there.
Yeah, like Will and Leo took apart the fuel pump like 2 or 3 times.
Three
like
times.
fishing it out of the basket. Leo's got, like, some pretty bad gasoline allergies. You can see, like, his hands all red and whatnot. And then, like 4 hours in, the radiator fan just kicks on randomly, like overdrive, as fast as it's ever been. Then it stops. Then it turns back on. Then it stops. Then we all look at each other and we're like, it's definitely an electrical problem, right? So then we just go like, where are all the grounding fits?
Is that what happened this weekend? Dude?
Yeah,
That's what happened.
And there's literally just a nut that we just started feeling all the grounding posts, and one nut just started turning when you started twisting it by hand. We're like,
There's been some Loctite on that.
Yeah.
For perspective, if you guys don't know how far Calabogie is from Toronto, it's about 4 hours of a drive. So Scott drives his fully caged E46 M3 for a 4-hour drive. It's a supercharged.
I love how he gets all
Basically,
creepy
race
when he
car.
does this.
He gets all what?
He gets all creepy in his voice.
He's in the zone.
Like, I'm just shocked because, like, I drove my supercharged BRZ there. I was like, okay, it's still a street car.
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
like factory interior. Dude, your car has got nothing in it.
Yeah, it's loud in there.
Crazy.
It's not a good place to be.
Crazy.
You putting like earplugs in, or like?
I wish you hadn't said that, because my wife's been telling me to put earplugs in for years, and now she's gonna be like, see, they all think you need to put earplugs in.
It's like certain frequencies, right? Like it might be like comfortable, but then Yeah, you never know, you know.
Do you have a diff in the E46? Like a does it whine? Does it have diff whine?
It didn't until last year. I put a 410 gear in the back last year, and yeah, that significantly downgraded the quality of the long distance commute.
Yeah. And do you run a harness on the street or?
Yeah.
It's
Just loosen
badass.
up a little bit.
Yeah.
Got that life,
with the containment seat.
Yeah.
Can't see anybody on either side of the car.
Bend forward, crazy to see the mirrors. Yeah.
Gangster,
That's crazy.
dude. Sick.
Yeah. Let's rewind a little bit. We started going down a path, but this has been a great conversation so far. So I want to take you back to your first year of doing Time Attack, right? Was it CSCS?
Yeah.
The first year. What do you remember most vividly about that season?
Rain.
Rain?
I think it rained at almost every event. Yeah. Yeah, I think it rained at almost every event. But other than that, I just remember it being a good time. Like at that point, all I'd ever done was just track days.
Yeah.
So, and I don't even think, I'm trying to think back, I don't even think I had a lap timer in the car before that.
Okay.
So that was the first time I actually had any idea of lap times.
Yeah.
And that really changed my perspective on going to the track. All of a sudden there was a goal. It wasn't just like go to the track and have a good time. Now it was like go to the track and find out what my lap time is and then go back and try and beat it. And then go back and try and beat it. And I've been trying to do that ever since.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And what year was that in? Do you remember?
2011.
2011. Okay, so it's 2014 now. It's 13 years.
24.
Huh?
It's 2024.
What did I say it was?
14.
Oh, shoot, man. I wish, man. Let's turn back time. It's been, I did say 13 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
I was just, brain fart.
Yeah.
How has CSS changed over those years? Like, does it still feel like the same competition, same organization from 2011, or like are there like distinct points in that time span where like things have gone one direction or another?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. It's evolved. Like the spirit of CSCS, I would say, has stayed pretty consistent.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been a bit of a rowdy time, which is what makes it fun. But the competition aspect of it has changed significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Cars have gotten a lot faster. It's a lot more serious than it used to be. Like I remember when I first started going, people would just show up and be like, "Hey, what'd you do to your car since the last event?" And be like, "Oh, I put gas in it." And that would be about the extent of it.
Yeah.
And now obviously everybody's chasing hundredths of a second. Everybody's trying to maximize the class. Whereas before it was just like, what class does your car fit in? Cool, I'll run in that class.
Yeah.
So the competition has increased significantly, and the types of cars have increased and changed quite a bit, and budgets have changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, but I mean that's kind of the nature of grassroots motorsports. When you first starts off, it's usually pretty quiet. Everybody just goes to have fun, and then competition kicks in, and everybody starts getting a lot more serious.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said the first year you were already classed in Super Street with M3, right? And it's still in Super Street. So has it just stayed in that class?
Just always been in Super Street, yeah.
Yeah. So, you were a mainstay in that class. Who are your rivals, through the years? Who are the most memorable battles that you've had with?
Yeah, so Rian with his C5 Z06. If any of you guys remember him, he was around CSCS for a number of years. He had a red C5 Z06 with like some green accents on it.
Okay.
Great driver. We had some really good battles. His car was always a little faster at TMP, but I had some really, really close battles with him at DDT. I want to say it was 2015. Car had aero, no supercharger, and he qualified ahead of me. And I think we were within like 100th of a second on our best lap. And I just edged him out. And it was probably, to this day, probably my most rewarding victory. Because all day I was just chasing. We were both getting faster. And then I just edged him out the last lap.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was definitely a fun battle. Michael Gardner has always been fun to compete with as well in his 350Z. Like
shout out MG Motorsports.
Yeah, for sure. Fierce competitor, and
he's got the best memes, man. I gotta tell you, part-time race car driver, full-time
beamer, dude.
Yeah,
meme generator for sure.
Yeah, Mike, we got to get you back out, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a fierce competitor and definitely one of those guys that that kind of made it a little bit more serious.
Okay.
Early on, like Mike came and right away he was all about the competition.
Yeah.
And kind of a lot of drivers at that point still weren't at that point.
Yep.
So he was kind of one of the pioneering guys that took it really seriously and tried to maximize his car within the class.
Yep.
And just built a really fast car without a lot of power. Like just a really, really cool grip car. So yeah, he was definitely fun to compete with as well.
So on that point, people coming in and kind of min-maxing the rules a little bit, did that have an impact on the paddock at all? I'm curious, like, because sometimes like kind of what we're experiencing in Lucky Dog right now is that we came in with a new team, fairly new team, but like caveat being that it's has experience from multiple seasons of racing with other teams and built a car and did really well and immediately kind of got scrutinized quite a bit. Did you kind of see that happen through the years of CSCS where like, before it was like, yeah, literally just drive, like run what you brought. Now everyone's kind of, taking a closer look at the rule book. I've heard and have kind of experienced like nowadays there's a little bit more of like, people in the paddock don't talk to each other as much, as some other competitions maybe. People are kind of trying to look under the cars a little bit, see what's going on. What's your take on all that?
Well, I guess there's a little bit of that. I mean, there's definitely any motorsports that I've ever heard of has that. If somebody shows up with a car, really builds the car to the rules, dominates the event, everybody's always like, oh, what's going on over there? What do they do that's not legal? But really, they just read the book and did a good job. I've never really had that perspective because my build at this point is about, in its current build state, is about 7 years old. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be competitive, nor is it at the pointy end of competition. It's not built to the rule book. And I think to stay relevant in time attack and be at the pointy edge, you essentially need to reinvent your car every year or change platforms, which isn't practical, right? Not everybody's got the money to do that. So I think there comes a time where you just kind of need to accept what you have and focus on the fun and the competition against yourself, knowing that you're trying to go faster to please yourself. But there's always going to be people that are a little bit upset by the way the rules are not favoring their car and how they may be perceived to favor other cars. But I wouldn't say like that's definitely something that happens at CSCS, but I wouldn't say it takes away from it at all. It's a fairly small percentage. Like overall, CSCS is very open. There's a lot of teams that talk. Like perfect example, when I was driving to Calabogie, that same event that my fuel pump or my fuel transfer pump failed. On the way up to Calabogie, my wheel bearing failed. And I didn't have a spare with me. And I just put it out on the CSCS group chat and I must have had like 15 people message me. Yeah. I had competitors that were, directly hoping to beat me that day, stopping off at parts shops everywhere on the way up, trying to find me a wheel bearing.
That's great. Yeah.
So like, and that's somebody who would actually benefit if I hadn't made it to the track that day. Right. So,
no hollow victories, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I would say there's still like a lot of openness in that series and, just a big team atmosphere. Yeah. Unless if we're on the track and then everybody's trying to win, obviously.
Hell yeah. How it should be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that I've always appreciated about CSCS, like one thing that we discussed last time when we were kind of talking about the different series is like CSCS across like all the time attack competitions is like the biggest spectacle, right? And that is great for the scene and that like it just draws a lot of people, right? They do a great job with marketing and people come and see it. And it's like a ton of fun. And the other thing I love about it is the format with Final Attack. It just like heightens the excitement.
Max Attack?
Not Max Attack, Final Attack.
Final Attack.
Yeah, like where you have to qualify in and then it's whatever time you set the Final Attack session.
Where you can throw your entire day away with one mistake.
Yeah, you go 4 wheels off. Yeah, game over, right? Did that happen to you? You go 4 off?
Never.
No?
Never gone.
Have you gone 4 off in final before?
I have not, no.
Oh, wow.
You guys aren't driving hard enough.
Jeez,
we're
13
just rolling
years.
around the track.
Send it, bro.
Scott, have you done Max Attack before?
No.
No? Why not? Because they're egging me on to do it this Sunday. I don't know how I feel about like I've seen some footage. It's wild.
It is wild.
Crazy.
Every event they come and say, hey, you're running Max Attack. And every event, I'm like, not a chance, not a chance. It's a ton of fun to watch, and I'm sure it's a ton of fun to participate in. But as we were talking before with my OCD tendencies with my car, I can't do it. One of the reasons I love Time Attack is that I know if the car gets wrecked, it's my fault. It's not likely to be somebody else's fault. Whereas Max Attack, it's a completely different risk factor.
I just think it'd be such good content, you know?
So you're gonna-
Hey, like if I do a
just do
Max
it.
Attack YouTube video,
It's like either way, it's gonna be
crazy.
good content.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't think Scott's a content creator, man.
I know, but
That's
it'd be crazy. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I'll see like who's doing it, and we'll maybe I'll do it last minute or something like that. I don't
With
know.
what car?
M2,
Are you serious? Your own car?
my own car. I think
Wild.
I can win Max Attack in that thing for sure. It's so wide,
no front
so
cage.
fast, huh?
Like you only got a roll bar in there, right?
No, like I see all these like Civic Type R's.
Most of the
running
Max
it,
attackers have nothing.
Yeah,
So
they
they
know.
still,
They got street
they don't
cars.
care. They don't
Yeah.
care.
Street cars
Still
with
ahead on
airbags,
that.
dude. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Besides, you got some practice for near contact at the last CSCS.
No, I had contact. We made contact. Did you watch the video? We
I did.
made
I did.
contact. Yeah,
That was crazy.
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 Remind us what happened.
Well, actually, sorry, I didn't watch this. It's actually not Black Storm. That car is not Black Storm.
Different one. This is built
Richard
similar.
Boak drives Black Storm. This one is Bevan Gray's car. It's a different name. I forget what it's called.
But it
I don't know if
basically
you know
looks the
Scott,
same,
but
though.
basically looks the same. But essentially, like, I don't know. We made contact, man. Like that's it. Like, we made contact. Like,
There was some miscommunication.
with some
too, like-
miscommunication. You know, I was trying to pass. I was pushing too hard. He was warming up his slicks. Like, there's miscommunication.
But I
you
feel
know?
like, see, you kind of got like the best of both worlds in there. Like, yes, unfortunately, you made contact, but it was like all cosmetic. But you get to now go around parading, say, "Yo,
exactly. You
I
know,
made
make
contact."
contact. Go with the
Time Attack
fastest
event,
car.
that's crazy,
With
dude.
the fastest car too.
Yeah,
right?
it made a good story. I was right behind you when that happened.
Oh yeah. Did you see
Front row
like
seat.
what happened?
I almost joined the party.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Because he slammed the brakes.
I was trying to figure out where you guys were going.
Yeah.
Create a new track.
Yeah.
They were taking the bowl around turn 2 from the old oval days.
Yeah,
you
trying to
know?
relive the oval days. King of the Hill challenge.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Crazy.
that is nuts.
Crazy.
That is nuts. Yeah. So now, you know, you kind of talked about your build's like 7 years old. And it sounds like you listened to the three of us ramble on in the last episode about the current state of things.
Yeah.
What's your take?
Are we talking brackets here?
No.
Or
Just
just
like the
Time Attack in
cars
general?
that are showing
Like the
up
newer
and
cars, you
whatnot.
know,
Like,
like-
do you,
Yeah.
it sounds like you kind of generally agree with what we're saying here, but like I'm curious, like any disagreements on some of the things that we discussed in the last episode?
No.
hot
I mean,
takes?
yeah. I mean, it's natural that cars are evolving and getting faster, and it's natural that people are going to bring them out to the track.
Yeah.
And obviously, as the sport grows and more people get access to it, people with different budgets are going to come and play, and they're going to bring some different machines, and it changes the sport a little bit, but it doesn't change what Time Attack's all about. At the end of the day, Time Attack's about going as fast as you can. And that's what makes Time Attack exciting is the progression. And even just talking about when I started in 2011, like I remember the fastest guy then was doing like a 119, and how that was just like, wow, how does he do a 119? Like, I'm never going to be that fast. But now, you know, a 114 is like, oh yeah, it's okay. Right. So, and now the fast guys are doing like 107s, 108s. So
It's crazy.
that's what makes it interesting. So if you take away all those newer cars that are capable of doing that, you're left with all the older cars that people have kind of brought them about as far as they're going to take them.
Yeah.
So it just adds another element and keeps pushing those times down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing. It's just makes it a little bit more difficult to somebody who maybe is trying to hold on to the traditional idea of what Time Attack was to them when
Yeah.
they first got into the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we think it makes it tougher to get started? I wonder.
Yes and no. It's kind of a budget thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I would say the barrier of entry to be competitive is actually a little bit lower because you don't necessarily need to have as much mechanical knowledge to build a competitive car. You can take it to a shop,
Looking over here.
do some traditional mods to your car, and you can have a competitive car as
Yeah.
long as you got the money to do it.
Yeah.
So that actually makes it a little bit more accessible and opens the door to more people who maybe don't have the time or the knowledge to go in their garage and tear a car apart and try and make it fast.
Yeah.
It definitely And I mean, the challenge has always been including people that don't have that budget, but there are series for that. Like OTA does a great job of allowing a good place for cars to play that don't have $100,000 budgets. So I would say it's just open to more people now and more accessible. Because I mean, if you left it the way it was and everybody got as fast as they did, say 6-7 years ago, and there was no progression, then you're coming in with a mostly stock car trying to keep up with people that have built cars. And now you're trying to figure out how to drive fast and how to build a fast car. I had the luxury of starting when cars were relatively slow and drivers were relatively slow. So I had time to build myself up and build the car up. But now if you came into it and there wasn't access to those turnkey fast cars, you'd have to do both at the same time. And you'd probably get burnt out and frustrated before you got any major progress done.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you guys think?
That's so real, dude. That's so real, given the scope of what cars are available today and the competition environment now of like what kind of cars you can just bring that are like factory set up.
Yeah, for sure. So as someone who has like more time attack experience than all of us combined here, have you come up with any unpopular opinions, quote unquote unpopular opinions about time attack? I want to hear some hot takes on your thoughts.
Unpopular opinions. I don't know. I tend to be like somebody who just evolves with the sport. So I guess probably my latest unpopular opinion is about brackets in CSCS and how that they're okay.
They're okay.
I'm totally okay with brackets in CSCS because it hasn't actually changed what time attack's all about. It's just helped once again include more potential drivers because there's still those top classes. I've got friends that are going to be listening to this that are going to be like, I can't believe you brought up brackets. But anyways, it still has the top classes in each event where you can run as fast as there's no breakout. You can go as fast as you want, traditional time attack. But now you've got lower classes that help people who either have a car that they've overbuilt that wouldn't be competitive and have just found time attack and are now at the position where they've got a super street class car that they don't know how to drive. It gives them a chance to compete at a lower level till they figure out what they're doing and then work their way up. It's natural progression. There's always the argument that people are going to sandbag to win a trophy at the end of the day.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
Wow. That's what you guys were talking about in your secret meeting in there, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
And I don't know how many people are actually going to do that. And if people do that, that's fine. But at the end of the day, I think everybody just wants to go as fast as they can. So that's going to get boring really quick. So we might see some of that this year, but by the time everything dust settles next year, I think everybody will just be in the class where they should be so they can drive as fast as they can go and have a competitive but fun day.
Yeah. It can put like people in a pretty awkward situation where let's say like just to explain to the listeners, like CSCS now has, let's say for Super Street, there's Super Street Touring, there's Super Street GT, which is the one that's uncapped, no breakout time. So there is the possibility that through the natural progression of a day, let's say it's Calabogie and the driver's never been there before. Maybe they should be like Super Street GT, but because they're still familiarizing themselves with the track, there are times are like they're in T throughout the day, and then in the finals when they get really dialed in, they hit GT times, and by the rules they kind of be ejected, right? Like maybe, I don't know, maybe they would allow them to elect to be like, no, I want to be in the GT class, even though my times are lower than that, because I know like that's what I'm going to target in the finals, and I don't want to get, qualified in as T, but then break out.
I'm pretty sure you can change like right up until the finals.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're doing exactly that and your day is progressing, because I remember the first time I went at Calabogie, I think I found like 7 seconds throughout the day because it's a hard track to figure out.
Yeah, you drive half the track and you're like, I feel like I've seen this before.
Yeah, and then you realize one of the blind corners is not the corner you thought it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, that could potentially happen. But I would think if somebody's planning their day out and being strategic about it, they would see their progression and then change their class accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the most recent season opener for CSCS, right? DDT. First place was the LS swapped RX-7.
Yeah, Cody.
Yep. Cody. Second place was
TTRS.
TTRF.
Isaac.
Third
Yeah.
place was you.
And they were separated by 0.02.
Yeah.
So less than 2, well, not 2/10, like, I don't know, what is that, 200s?
Yeah.
That's
nothing.
insane.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
How far
Right?
behind were you?
I was 2/10 behind them. I think Scott and I were really close.
Yeah.
Like less than a tenth, I think, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
really
Yeah, it was
ridiculous.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Which was amazing.
I
That's the
absolutely
way it should
loved
be.
it. Like, I was like rooting for everybody, right? I wanted, I was rooting for Tim, rooting for you, rooting for. I wanted everybody to go fast.
So that's what he says here, but
No, really. Like backtrack a little bit. Like, I maybe like a month before the first event, they changed the rules, not just in terms of classing, but like where certain cars fit. Right.
Yeah.
So the Supra got pushed to Super Street, but
Okay.
for some reason, M2 competition was still in street class, which is why Jim and Johnny in their M2 competition destroyed street class. There was no third place street GT because nobody wanted to play with them.
yeah.
Right. Jim was in the 32s and Johnny was in the 33s. That's crazy, right? But for some reason, the V8s and the Supra got bumped up to Super Street, right? I could have stayed in street, but I want to play with these guys like that. I think that's the spirit of competition. Like that's where we should all be. Like if Tim's getting bumped up, he has a V8. Like his car is slower than mine in a straight line. Like I want to play with those guys. And as Scott said, like the spirit of like just trying to go faster, like trying to work up to GT class. I think everyone should be trying to do that, whether they're developing as a driver, changing the car, or a combination of both. Right. That is the spirit of time attack. Let's try to go as fast as we can. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it changed quite a lot very soon. Very close to the first event.
Yeah.
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 Well, that is traditional CSCS. They always like to leave you waiting right until the end. Yeah, there's no building your car over the winter to the rules because you don't know what they're going to be.
Yeah. Not only that, they changed the fact that there's no drivetrain classes.
Yeah.
We used to have like front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive. Now it's just like, all right, everyone is,
But I think that kind of makes sense though. No?
Yeah, it's
Makes
cool.
the competition tighter.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fewer splits. So, fourth place finish. And knowing that it's been 7 years since any major modifications, does that give you some motivation to go back to the drawing board a little bit and think about what's next?
Oh yeah, I mean there's always that.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what makes the most sense. But it was a fourth place finish that could have been a first place finish.
Yeah.
Like the day, I remember when I was lining up on the grid, I had been qualifying first all day.
Yeah.
And then Cody got me on the last qualifying session, and not by much. So I remember lining up on the grid and my wife saying good luck and me just saying like, this is anybody's race. I have no idea what's going to happen. This is the most exciting grid I've been on in a long time. So yeah, it's not like when I came off and they told me I got fourth, because I was optimistic because Cody spun on the last lap. And I remember sailing past him thinking like, did I get him? In reality, no, I was fourth. But at the time I'm thinking like, okay, I got a chance here. So
he fully spun out on the final session?
Yeah, but he didn't impede anybody. He got his first 2 laps in.
Got it. Okay.
I think
so there's no like rule where you're DQ'd if you go 4 wheels off or anything like
That's
that?
OTA, man.
It's just OTA.
not
darn.
yeah, if you go 4 wheels off, you can go back on as long as you don't impede
Impede
anybody.
somebody
But
else.
if you impede somebody, then you're done.
Yeah. Okay.
But because he went off on his 3rd lap and it wouldn't have been his best lap anyways,
Yeah.
he just stayed out of the way.
Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah, I remember
Cody, man.
just running and just having no idea what was going to happen and who was going to win. And like you're trying to judge the distance between you and the car in front of you, but it just takes 1 lap. So you may be closing in on them because your average laps are faster, but that 1 lap that matters is not.
Yeah.
And that it made it a really fun day. Like I remember coming off the track and thinking like, fourth, boo. Like I really wanted a podium. But then thinking about it 5 minutes later and being like, actually, that was a lot of fun. That was the most competition I've had in a long time because looking at the time charts, everybody was right there. And that to me means that the classing is actually working.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Wow.
Yeah, the V8 Miata was there too, like just behind us.
Brad was right in there.
Yeah, and the craziest thing was we were the fastest 5 cars,
Yeah.
right? We were the fastest. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the class, and 1, 2, 3,
You
4,
took
5
out
overall.
the unlimited car, with your shenanigans.
yeah, okay. But yeah, great day, really good day. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the strategy for TMP then? What are you guys doing? What's the secret?
Nothing. Put gas in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah,
wink,
right,
wink,
right.
wink, wink.
I mean, the only thing that's changed for me, I actually changed seats and put a lightweight battery in. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
like
Nothing
30
else.
30
Yeah,
pounds.
alignment for TMP. That's it.
Yeah. What do you change alignment wise for TMP between DDT and TMP?
What do I do?
What does MTech do? And don't tell you.
I run a little bit more toe out in the front
Okay.
and a little less toe in the rear.
Okay.
For
So you want
TMP.
a little bit looser.
I want a little bit looser.
Hey guys, I got to run back home to the garage, unrelated reasons, make some adjustments to the car.
Yeah. No, I feel like a TMP, if I run staggered this year, so I feel like if I'm not rotating the car, you're always destroying the front left tire, right? All the right turns. So like I like a little bit of rotation, like especially through the S's, like lift to rotate, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
make it a little bit looser.
Do you do the front toe out for rotation or for turn in?
For turn in.
For turn in,
Yeah.
which corners do you think like that benefits the most?
Honestly, like almost all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so like the corners are so, they're not. There's no really big sweepers. I mean, like turn one is like, I don't know, I guess the longest corner, if you will.
Yeah.
The other ones are just
Kinda.
quick, changes of direction, right? You got to be the cars want to be nimble and quick through there, right? And just kind of lean a little bit on the power. Yeah. Try to get in and out of the corners as fast as I can. Yeah. I take some funny lines through like 3, 4, 5. I attack all the curbs. I don't track out to the right for turn 3. For turn 1, 2. Yeah, for the exit of 3, I track all the way to the left, and I just abuse all the curbs through the S's.
Yeah. Line 'em
And your
up,
rims.
Line them
Yeah.
up.
Huh? Sorry.
And your rims.
Yeah, and my rims just attack. Yeah.
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 That's true. Well, do you agree with that assessment on alignment for TMP?
Yeah. No, it's not wrong. I run an alignment that I just leave for the season. That's just kind of a combination of stuff that works for me at all tracks, just because I'm not well set up at home to adjust alignment.
Yeah.
So mine's kind of a compromise for all events. But some toe out at TMP is definitely a good thing.
Yeah. So tell me this. So you said you have OCD tendencies, right? Would you ever run an asymmetrical alignment? Even if you know it's faster.
Yeah, I mean, if I guess
He's like thinking. He's like,
yeah,
Silence is so loud.
I'm thinking if I was staring and looking at the car, if it would bother me.
yeah.
It would bother me, but yeah, I'd still do it.
Yeah.
I'd still do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
when you
'cause it's-
corner balance, the car is like all funny.
that's what I
like,
was just gonna
looking
say.
and
It's
stuff.
like
Yeah.
corner balance, right? Like the
Yeah.
car is corner balanced. It bothers me when I look at it in the garage and it's like all kind of a little askew, but it's faster that way. So I live with it. I just
Yeah.
close one
Just
eye.
take the weight penalty and add ballast.
Yeah,
Just balance it out.
No, I just leave it in jack stands in the garage all the time, so I don't notice.
Yeah. Oh man. So to step aside from, I guess, a little bit from time to time specifically. So your Instagram handle, FS Motorsports.
Yeah.
What is FS Motorsports?
So FS Motorsports is a good friend of mine, Farshad Sani, who's also been at CSCS for years. He's got an R32 GTR with red wheels, black car, and he has an E92 M3 as well. Hasn't been out for a couple of years, but we're hoping to see him at some point this year. So he is the F in FS Motorsports, and I am the S in FS Motorsports. And
Makes
that's how it started. Just a couple buddies that met at the track and became really good friends.
Nice. Do you guys like create content together? Write stuff or anything like that? Produce any products?
We often talk about different plans that we have, but life usually gets in the way. Like there is a YouTube channel with a couple track videos that I'm sure people have seen that are pretty old now. And there's the Instagram page. There is a website, fsmotorsports.com.
Yeah.
It is about 4 years out of date. So if you want to see what we were up to 4 years ago, go to fsmotorsports.com.
Little time capsule.
Yeah. But I mean, life does get in the way. It's always about finding a compromise of finding the time to do what you love and everything else that is important in life as well. So for the most part, just focus on the racing. And if we've got time to do anything on the side, then try and work that in. But racing and family always comes first.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Hell yeah.
In the opposite order, but yeah. No, that's great. I have seen like you've made some things, like fabricated some stuff. Like you did that mount for your Garmin, right?
Yeah.
For the car, that looked like really well put together and in a great spot.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll probably try and retail that, just to help pay for the cost of melted plastic. But but
Were you just printing that at home or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have an industrial design background, so
Okay, nice.
it was time to dust off some of those skills and
Yeah.
and build a couple things for the car. I couldn't OCD tendencies, couldn't stand having the Garmin just suction cupped the windscreen, so
Yeah.
wanted to get something a little bit more fixed.
Yeah, I screwed mine onto. So interesting about the FRS is it has these removable covers for the center console that are just flat spaces that you can just put a few holes and then
Perfect.
mount it. And it's like a piece that you can probably pick up for like $20 from the dealership if you ever feel like you need to replace it, but it's like perfect.
Yeah, that's easy.
Just mount everything to it. Yeah.
Well, my M3 had center vents that weren't doing anything anymore since the cage went in, so
Yeah.
it's kind of a no-brainer to use those and use them for something more functional.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. So one of the things that you mentioned very early on in the podcast, I'm jumping around a little bit now, but this has really kind of piqued my interest a little bit. When we were talking about the role of car culture and your upbringing, you mentioned that you remember spending time with your mom working on the car. And I think for a lot of us, it's either like we discover it on our own or there's like a male figure in our lives, whether it's like our dad or an uncle or grandfather, that we kind of share that experience with. But yours seems a little bit more unique, right? Tell me how that's kind of impacted how you kind of enjoy the car hobby, or has it had an impact in the way you do it?
Yeah, for sure. So my mom's always been very DIY. She's not really one to work on her car, but she'll work on pretty much anything else that she can find. So when I got into just tinkering with stuff growing up, she was just really open to letting me change the spark plugs on her car, or let me change the air filter on her car. And even though her car was very dear to her, she still has an 85 Corvette that she's had since 1990. She still trusted me to pop the hood on it and change spark plugs when I was like 16 years old, which is amazing. And I think that support really went a long way into kind of just helping me do what I do. Because I remember a couple years after that, my parents went away for the weekend and they came home and there was a half cut of an S13 on the front lawn that I had ripped the SR out of, and a half-built car in the garage that was running with no exhaust. The neighbors were complaining because I'd started it up at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And my mom just thought it was the best thing ever. She's like, this is awesome. My stepdad saw the half-car carcass lying on the front lawn and was definitely less impressed. But yeah, just always having that support and just that kind of encouragement. And she still comes out to every event that I do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is really cool. So lots of support from my mom and my stepdad, and they're always out there. And yeah, that just makes it a little bit more sustainable, because it's not like I'm taking time away
from family,
to do something on my own on the weekends. It's like something they look forward to as well. So it just gets everybody together, gets everybody to the track. You know, they're friends with all of our track friends, and it's just a fun event for them. And especially being car people, they're surrounded by cool cars, and yeah, it makes for a very good day.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I think that's like one thing that I personally struggle with is like, my wife is very supportive, but it's just not her scene.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, I don't have an expectation of like, so one of the things that she'll always tell me is like I'll invite her and say, oh, why don't you come? Why don't you come to this event? And then the reality of it is like, she'll ask us like, okay, but do you actually want me there? Are you just saying that? Or do you actually want me there? I was like, yeah, I want you there. But the reality is I know you're not going to have a good time. So you know what? You're right. Like, it's an empty gesture, because what you would really want is like, okay, let's go plan a weekend where we go do something that we both enjoy, right? It's not really me extending anything to her by inviting her. It's kind of an empty statement. I don't
It's
know.
going to be Jenny's first time with me on Sunday.
Yeah,
It's my birthday on Sunday. And she's like, I have to come. I'm like, I'm trying to find a way.
Did you just say that so that we let you in?
I'm trying to find a way so that she stays at home, and then I'll come home, then we'll go for dinner.
Why, does it make you
She's
nervous?
not, no, she's just like, okay, first of all, I'm already on the fence about Max Attack, okay? Max Attack. She'll be watching Max, like, what the hell is going on? And then obviously I don't know, I think I'll be very distracted if she's there, you know?
because you care.
You want to keep the game
you
face
wanted
on.
to
I
have a
need
good
to have the
time.
game face on. I can't be all lovey-dovey like, oh, hey,
You think it's gonna make you soft?
yeah.
Scott's like, yes, bring her.
I know his weakness now.
distracted. I was
You
distracted.
should yeah, make sure she's there somehow, right? Yeah. Send a limo, bring her there.
Oh man.
It's so funny. Oh man.
So
So like Joanne, my wife and our son, we took the whole family to CSCS at DDT because you guys are all competing there, and I think that I'm happy to take her because mostly it's funny because the main reason why I was more open to taking her there is because they actually have a nice facility and they have proper bathrooms and not just
That makes
porta
a
potties.
difference.
That makes a difference.
Yeah.
It makes a
Like
difference. I'm like
Shannonville or TMP.
Shannonville, TMP. I'm like every time we go there, I'm thinking like, do I want to bring them? I was like, nah, this is not gonna work. And you don't even know if the bathroom is gonna be open in some
Yeah,
lapping
it's like
days.
a 50-50 chance.
It's 50-50. So
You might just have
man.
porta potties that have been full since last year.
yeah, or you just go hang out with the ticks out in the fields.
yeah, I don't know, man. And I was like trying to take a nap at CSCS, like at TDT, and then they started two-step ref battling next to me. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Luckily, Will has those VIP passes,
Yeah,
or wristbands, so we got a few of those
inside.
from MTech, and we just went into the the building that we have all the drivers classes and whatnot during DDT lapping days. So that was nice. We had a private view, just chilling
It was
in
good.
the AC.
Yeah, that was probably a very good spot to be on
Yeah.
that Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hot. It was hot. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel like we can go on for quite a while. I've really gotten to know you quite well. I appreciate you coming out all this way and hanging out with us as well.
No, it's been a blast. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah. So one of the things one segment we always do with all of our guests is we call it the Modest Dream Garage. And this is just, again, another way to kind of relate to our guests a little bit. So the game is you get $200,000. You can have 3 cars, but they need to satisfy all your needs, right?
Okay.
Like you think about like, getting the groceries, moving the family around, stuff like that. What are you choosing?
So all the cars I have now they're gone.
Yeah.
I've got
You gotta restart it.
$200,000 cash in my pocket. Do I have to buy 3 cars, or can it be 1 or 2?
I think just to make it comparable to everybody else, I think we got to stick to the 3 cars.
No, but why does he need 3 though? Like, just let the man cook. Let the man cook. Like, let's hear from him.
But okay,
Don't
but
box them in.
the condition is it needs to satisfy all your needs, which means like if you need to drive in the wintertime, you're taking this thing out.
Yeah, but I don't.
Okay.
I walk to work, so I can get just 1 car, and I can,
Okay, so what's it gonna be?
but then, yeah. See, this is actually a battle that I've been having internally with myself for a while now, because I've wanted to buy something really fast and new that I can drive to the track, run some great lap times with, and then drive home in comfort.
Yep.
But then I'm also aware that I'm not going to be able to leave it alone. So then do I want to take like a $200,000 car and mod it? Probably not. Probably shouldn't. So I'll give you 2 answers.
Okay.
So I've got the 1 car, I'd probably get a C8 Z06 if it had to be just the 1 car to put in the garage to do that would be my everything car. That could be a car that I could go out for dinner in, car I could do laps of the track,
But you
cars
need
I
to
could
save
road
like
trips in.
$50 for your New Balance shoes, and then
Golf clubs.
some golf clubs too, right? Cargo shorts.
My stepdad's got some. I'm sure he could lend me some shoes. Yeah. Yeah. It's my parents are a 2 Corvette family. So like all that stuff's there.
Yeah.
It's all sorted out. But yeah, I definitely need to budget for the New Balance shoes. But if it was going to be like a more traditional 3-car setup, then I would probably want something vintage. So boring choice because I already have one, but the Datsun 240Z for sure would be the vintage car. And then something fun all around, probably for a daily, probably a G body M4.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And then something
Why the 4 over the 2?
over the M2.
Yeah.
Maybe I need more time to stare at it.
Okay. It's the looks.
Yeah, it's the looks. And I do work for BMW. I work at BMW Toronto.
Yeah.
So I see them every day. They still haven't grown on me. I actually prefer the regular M240 more.
Yep.
So yeah, it would be an M4. And then for a track toy, it'd probably be an older Corvette. Probably like a C6 Z06 or something like that.
Dang, you guys are hearing this for the first time. Like the guy who's synonymous with E46.
I'm
with
kind of
M3.
sad, you know.
It's just
I'm kind
Corvette
of sad
this,
you didn't say
Corvette that.
E46 M3, you know.
Dude, sold out.
That's you, man. Like
I know.
I'm sad.
I feel like I'd just be picking the same cars again. Where would be the fun in that?
But you see, like this is why like generational marketing for cars works. You know, you grew up with Corvettes around you. You just
I've
can't
never
shake
owned
it,
one.
right?
I've never owned
Yeah,
one.
but it's
it
in
almost
line, you know, it's there.
it almost feels wrong that I haven't owned one.
Okay,
because
yeah.
they've been in my family forever.
Yeah,
So it's like now's my time. I need to get one.
yeah.
Are you actually like what you're saying? Is that are you actually trying to put that into like reality? Are you actually trying to get a C8 Z06?
Oh, I have no idea. I did want a C8 Z06 for a while, but like I said, I don't know if it makes sense to get one and just leave it alone. I don't think I could.
What
So-
does a C8 Z06 need though? That thing is
doesn't
like
need anything.
22s at GP, right?
It is.
That thing will slap.
It's
like
monster fast. It doesn't need anything. But to me, I don't know. Like we're all sitting here. We're all people that mod cars.
Yeah, you got to do something to make it your own. How do you make it your own?
And then you're showing up with the car that everybody knows is very fast.
Yeah.
And it's like, where's the pride in that? It's like you just bought this car. You're super quick with it. Everybody knew you were going to be super quick with it. If you're not super quick, it's just embarrassing.
We all got fragile egos here. That's
Yeah,
the thing,
exactly.
right?
Whereas if you
Everyone's
show
so
up with a car,
fragile.
nobody knows what to expect and you're slow. It's like, oh, you just blame the car.
Yeah.
But if you show up with a fast car and you're slow, well, then you got nowhere to go.
That's why I love tracking the GTI guys. You know, no expectations.
Dude, Scott's so real, man.
I mean, that's real. That's real. Yeah. So no other like on the single car, you know, way of answering this question. Like no other car would even come close in consideration.
Single car, $200,000 budget?
Yeah. What are you
No.
cross shopping?
No.
Just that, eh?
Yeah, just that.
Wow. Pat, is that a hard car to get these days?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know the exact like requirements for the dealership
Yeah,
scape,
yeah.
but I'm pretty sure you probably need to do some pretty hard buying of other cars to even get an
Interesting.
allocation.
Or just be on a list for a very long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, I've never really heard of that for non-Porsche cars, but I guess yeah, when it's
Well,
That's
now we've
special, huh?
decided to make really nice cars. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not, okay, again, I'm not speaking for Chevy here.
he's so
I'm speaking
nervous
for
all the time with
GM.
this.
I can't speak for my company, but
Yeah.
it is pretty hard to get one of these cars nowadays.
Okay. Well, okay.
And all the slowdowns at Bowling Green don't help either.
Will not comment. I'm in engineering, not in manufacturing, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like not my area.
Yeah, that's funny.
But cool selection, man. Like, I mean, it is a cool car. I see them around at our like proving grounds and stuff, and I'm like, wow, man, like what a machine we've created in the evolution of Corvette over the past few years, from like C6, ugly interior, C7, you know, a little bit mid-grade, but C8, it's like, whoa, that's cool. That's something different.
It's a great car all around, yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the benchmark car for that again? A Ferrari, right?
I have no comment for that.
Yeah, because like you know, somebody mentioned it to me. I'm like, oh, you know what?
I heard they bought a Ferrari and took
you
it
know
apart
what? Like it does kind of look like that.
and sound like that.
Yeah. What do you guys think about that? Like people, like different companies, just kind of like looking at it. Like what comes to mind for me, right? Like obviously the 86s was based off of what, like a Cayman, right? That was kind of like the benchmark car that they were thinking about. Even like oddly enough, like you look at, I think this is just from a styling perspective, but you look at the Ioniq 5, basically it looks like a Porsche. Right? I think it's the Ioniq 5, right? Is it 5 or Ioniq something? Like the Hyundai all electric car,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
stuff like that. Like there seems like a lot of like they just nowadays manufacturers take like something that works and it's like, okay, let's just
Well, I mean, think of
Remix.
the BMW 3 Series formula, right?
Yeah.
Like the 3 Series is sort of like the staple for like entry level rear-wheel drive sedan, and like every company has tried to replicate that. Like I don't know if Cadillac has done it, maybe Mercedes has done it, but like it's a very staple car to benchmark because it works.
yeah.
Evidently, it works. Scott is a very good representation of that vehicle.
Still
So,
working.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, that's always been a thing. Like, even if I look at the history of my Datsun, like that car was,
Yeah, Toyota 2000 GT.
yeah, but it had a lot of
Exactly.
inspiration, not even just from that car, but from they looked at Ferraris, they looked at Porsches. There's a lot of inspiration in that car, and it's just got bits and pieces all slapped together that somehow worked really well.
Yeah.
There's no fresh ideas anymore. Everybody's just taking a combination
A lot
of
of
different
remix.
perspectives that make a lot of sense and reinventing them.
Where's the money at,
Yeah.
man? Let's make something where the money's at.
So on that point, what do you all think is the most unique car right now that actually performs? Like different formula than what we're used to, but like seems to work. Anything come to mind?
You know what? It's unique nowadays, and maybe there's some GM bias here, but the CT5 V Blackwing is a formula that's no longer implemented. You get supercharged V8 sedan, and it's just high power, big body.
Yeah.
Who's doing that now?
And those are just rear drive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gangster.
It's the big engine, big sedan, rear drive thing that makes that car unique.
Yeah, it's
because everybody
going
else
away.
has gone all-wheel drive.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I'd probably say Elantra N. I mean, we talked about it a lot already in this podcast, but I find it such a unique car in what's available right now.
The formula of like 4-banger sedan turbo front wheel drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Isn't there some button on the steering wheel that's just got a ridiculous name to it? Does
N
anybody?
mode?
NGS.
But it's not just called NGS. It's got like some silly little nickname on
like
it. Does anybody know what I'm
Engrin or
talking?
something?
Yeah, Engrin. That's it.
No, it's a Korean car. I'm sure.
Yeah, like the speedo and the tack like comes like just flames around it.
Yeah.
Fire
That's
comes
sick.
out. It's
Engrin
crazy.
mode.
That's like, can you imagine? Like, cause like as you've discussed before, it's all the BMW M engineers working there, and then the marketing department comes in and is like, hey guys, got this great idea. You press this button and flames come on the jack, and they're like,
Let's do it.
they're like, can we stop this? Do we have the authority to stop this? And they're like, nope. All right.
Marketing wins every time.
Marketing
man.
wins every time, huh? All right. Okay, let's wrap this up. So any forward-looking thoughts? Where do you think the scene is going? Where do you think, your role or participation is going to be like moving forward?
Yeah, well, I think everybody's just going to keep getting faster. And I'm actually really looking forward to the cars that we were talking about before, the cars that are on market that are turnkey cars. I'm really excited to see where those cars are in 5 years.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at the potential of these cars out of the box, for the most part with full interiors and air conditioning.
Yeah.
I'm really excited
Stripped
for when
down.
people start being like, I don't care anymore. I'm taking a Sawzall of this thing.
Yeah.
And what they turn it into then. I think that's going to be exciting to see what kind of performance can be extracted when you haul out some of the weight that these things are carrying around. Add some crazy aero, turn up the boost a little bit more. I think we're in for some exciting times in Time Attack.
Yeah,
I think we got a long way to go before people start to plateau.
Yeah. Can you imagine like a skinned out G87, like sub 3,000 pounds?
Yeah, it'd be wild.
It would be insane. Absolutely.
It's like
insane.
109.
Like you're
Not sub 110? You're slow.
GP?
dude. Like you'd have to put like big air on that because it'll just get airborne on the back straight on some of those hills.
Goodness.
Like literally, it'll just pop up. Anyway, well, any shout outs?
Well, yeah, to my family, to CSES, for sure. For all my team members and friends that come out to every event, definitely couldn't do it without their support. So yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, Scott, you've been a great guest, and one of the things we push for, of course, is like again making motorsports really accessible. So I'm just gonna say this on your behalf that if you ever see this guy out on track, go over, talk to him. He's super nice. Doesn't seem.
I
like
might
he's
even
gonna
come
fight.
say hi to you.
Yeah,
And if I do, feel free to say hi back.
I cool guyed Scott because I was really nervous at my first competition day at GP and I regretted it. And I messaged him on Instagram apologizing. But thanks for saying hi to me, Scott.
What do you say in that message? Do you remember? Dang. What,
That car is
is that the
loud as hell.
McLaren?
No idea. Oh, that is McLaren. I think it's a 570S right behind us.
I think Scott was like, yo, it's cool, man. Don't worry about it. But like low key, I was like, oh man, like Scott's never going to talk to me again. And now we're on this podcast. So
Yeah, low key, I've been a little heartbroken ever since. So
I'm sorry.
Who do you think we should get on the show? Who would be a good guest?
From CSES?
Anywhere.
from anywhere,
Yeah.
you should get James Houghton on here.
Yeah. I think we should definitely get James on here.
Yeah, I think he'd be a great guest. He could talk about CTAC and all he's done with Time Attack and what he's doing now with Grid Life. Yeah, he'd be a great guest.
Yeah. You heard it, James. We're coming for you. Don't ghost us.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. So
Yeah, he really is.
Hey man, James made the time to talk to me when I first started B Squared, so I'm sure he'd be cool with
you
it.
said hi back to him, eh?
Oh.
Sorry, Scott. I'm sorry, man.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll call it here. If you guys have any questions for us, any questions for Scott, you know what to do. Just leave them in the comment section of the YouTube video that this belongs to. So if you're listening on Spotify, just head over to the Two Track Mind YouTube and drop a comment there, and we'll read it out and discuss. And if it's for Scott, we'll make sure he sees the question and get his thoughts on it. And
Go check out FS Motorsports.
FS Motorsports on Instagram,
Check it out.
on YouTube, on the 4-Year-Old website. Yeah, all those places. Go follow. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks
Catch you
so
on
much
the
for
next
having
one.
me, guys.
See you later.